What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Down&DirtyDV podcast. I, of course, am your host, Anthony Q. Artist of Down&DirtyDV. And first off, I just want to start off by apologizing for such a long absence from the podcast scene. As you know, if I'm absent, must be a good reason for it. And in case you haven't heard, in case you've been under a rock somewhere or haven't opened up a magazine and seen an ad, the reason we've been absent from our podcast is because I've been busy putting this together for you. It is the brand new, full-color, 296-page Shut Up and Shoot documentary guide. Definitely check it out. You can cop your copy at down&dirtydv.com, and there's more information on the book there. But today, we're going to get back to guerrilla film education, which is our mission here at Down&DirtyDV, and we're going to talk about the number one thing that people write in and ask me about, the number one thing I get asked about on panels and forums, the number one thing anybody's talking about anywhere when it comes right down to it, and that is the money, the moolah, the greenbacks, the luce, whatever you want to call it. It's all about raising the budget for your film, and in particular, I want to talk about raising the money for your first feature film. The biggest hurdle you got isn't actors, it isn't locations, it isn't putting together that good script for most of you. For most people, the biggest hurdle and the biggest mystery that they have is, how am I actually going to raise this money? How am I going to raise $250,000, $500,000, $100,000, or whatever the amount is? For you, it's your personal mountain. And today we're going to talk to a man that's going to help you climb that mountain, and his name is Pete Chatmon, and he is the director of the feature film Premium, which is now showing on cable as well as on DVD. And I sat down with Pete many moons ago, actually. I sat down with Pete about 2 years or so ago, before he had actually raised all the money for his film, and he broke down for me the plan for exactly how he was going to do it. And then an even more amazing thing happened. He went out and did it within 6 months after we had this conversation. So if you want a successful tips for how to raise money for your budget and for your feature film, check this out. I'll be back to talk to y'all afterwards. Pete Chatmon.
The main thing with any fundraising, you have to know what you have. You have to know what your film's about, who it appeals to, who would want to be in it. And once you have that, then you can begin to take it out to the people who will give you money. Then you can begin to really think about who that investor is. And when you think about them, then you have to think about what would they want. If you're doing a film, they want to know who was in it, what's it about, and how much money is going into it, and what kind of return can they see. And the more you can answer each of those questions in an advantageous way to your project, you'll find yourself with the money to make your film. Raising money for a film is like anything. I mean, there's a process to it. You have to, unfortunately, take stock in who you are and realize if you're going to be the director or the writer who will go and have your screenplays purchased, or are you going to have to wear more hats than you would perhaps like to and get the thing going. So it's the assembly line where you're just a cog on one level of that process, or are you going to be able to know every level involved here? For us and for Premium, we found that we need to know every level. And I think it's something that every filmmaker can do. If you want to direct, you direct. If you want to edit, you edit. And in our case, what we did was just really think about how we could get the money and then see how film financing is typically structured. Because whether you're raising $500,000 or $50 million, the budgets are identical in terms of what you need money for. It's just smaller amounts. And I think that any filmmaker, if you look into the details, you can do it. You really have to go through if you got a Palm Pilot, if you have Outlook, if you got Excite address book, go through and look at everybody that you have in there. Start making it clear what you do. There's no secrets here. You're not going to get by not letting anybody know what you're doing. So you got to put it out there that you're making this film, and then you got to begin to reach out to the people who can help make that happen. How do things sell themselves, right? Ad campaigns, word of mouth, magazines, newspapers, etc., lunch boxes, Happy Meals, all of that. If you don't have any of that, you've only got word of mouth. And unfortunately, the only mouth with the word is your own. You have to be your #1 voice box. You You're gonna need to think about the approach for everybody. You're gonna need to know your product, and you're gonna have to think about the psychology of the individuals that you're approaching. You gotta remember that you may not be Jerry Bruckheimer or Steven Spielberg, but you are making a film, you are in the film industry, and that may be attractive to an investor. Another thing that you need to consider is like, well, can I sell them on what this film is about? And is there any element of this film that I should maybe put more immediately on the table for them to respond to than another?